Good morning, traders. It's Perry Wilkie with StartupTrading.com. It is 8 minutes till 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, August 28th, almost the end of the month. So we have two more trading days, today and tomorrow, right? And then, of course, the holiday on Monday. Uh, so that means there's potentially a sell the VIX mentality because, right, the VIX is a lot of just selling time, right, for things to happen. So, uh, that usually will kind of keep a floor under the market as the VIX is doesn't have that pressure on it, right? You have to weigh that against geopolitical odds that people want to go home basically less hedged over the holiday weekend. So that's up to you, but I'm just telling you traditionally how it plays out. Uh, as we look at uh, yesterday's action, and this is of course before Nvidia's earnings yesterday. We just kind of had that little bit of a float up, right? Kind of getting closer to that 6,500 in the cash, and then you know really not a lot else going on. And as we look at just you know for us as day traders, right? It was a two-sided market. You had coming into the bell, we already down probably around 60 points or so, and then continue to drop another 70 or so, and then up 128, down 44, up 60, down 90, up 115, down 100, up 100. You get the point, right? Just kind of sitting there oscillating around where we spent, the whole overnight session yesterday. Uh, and then as we look at what happened later, right, you had NVIDIA report and you had one candle that took out the highs and the lows for the NQ and the ES. Uh, as they reported, right, they come up, they swept the highs, and they come back down and swept the lows. And where did they go? Kind of in the lower end of the distribution for yesterday's where they parked it. And then as we look at the Russell, right, it had some salmon run trades that went off after the bell, and then the Dow just kind of a little mixed bag there. And then we're still sitting here pressing up on these all-time highs, right? So we're either gonna finally push through, which would be great headlines for the long weekend, right? Uh, but not that that's going to be the catalyst that makes it happen. But as we're here, so we're either going to push through this in the next day, day and a half, right, between now and tomorrow, and start a new impulse higher, or we're just gonna kind of tread water where we are down in there. We're at the make or break point, so you're back as top of the range kind of, uh, but potentially looking to come up and over. You got 64.56 and 64.92 are really your points of control up here. And then as we look at the pullback, right, we still defended that 23,060 basically in the NQ on that last pullback, which was the lows going back to August 5th, August 6th. And then as we look at the ES has just been a relative outperformer. If you look at where you're at, you can see the ES is about to push to all-time highs. Um, it's within 10 points of an all-time high as I speak, and then you've got the Nasdaq that is basically over almost 500 points from this all-time high, about 520 points actually, or 400 400 or 500 points. Either way, just sitting there, uh, not joining in the party. So I mentioned yesterday because I didn't. I thought it had a chance of happening yesterday, but one thing you got to be careful is if the ES pushes up to an all-time high and the Nasdaq isn't trading above yesterday's high, I'd be very cautious of retracements and being long. It doesn't mean it just means I might just kind of sit on my hands and wait for another day to trade. I don't like to set up. What I would like to see is the Nasdaq being stronger if the ES is breaking out, and then watch the ES and see if it kind of falls, if and when. And I don't think we can get there today or tomorrow. To be honest, I don't think we can get to the NQ making an all-time high today or tomorrow, but we could get up to potentially 775 to uh, probably 888 is where I would look to see first to see if it can get up there if we go. Overnight session, again, not a lot going on, although we have a little bit bigger range, right? 174 point range for the NQ. And then even the last consolidation that we've been in from the highs is less than an 80-point range. Looking at where we're at, everyone has swept above the yesterday's high of the day in the overnight session. The Nasdaq and the ES, it was short-lived looks above. The Dow was a little bit longer, but it's back in yesterday's range. But the Russell is the standout, right? And I would still use this right around the gap fill, right? As long as the Russell can stay green, it's probably going to have a little bit more of a bid than not. Otherwise, it's probably going to do what it always does, right? Just uh, crash back to 2366 and then 2355. Uh, Looking at positioning real quick, and I would, I wouldn't look. I marked them anyways, but I wouldn't put too much of weight into the Nasdaq. One day expected moves and the ES one day expected moves. I'd more watch the SPX, the SPY, the QQQs. Anytime that there's a big earnings like Nvidia, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, one of the large weights and the indices. I don't like to look at a tight range. Take these for what it's worth. Uh, what I usually say is you need the VIX to be dropping as you're going above these, but when you see the futures have such a small range compared to what you're looking at for the other index, the ETFs and the cash indexes. I'm a more of a discounter to those one day expected moves. With all that said, uh, you've got potential call wall, and I will mention that you know you've got the call wall at 6,500 still on the cash market, right? You've got the one day call wall, up another 150 points. Basically, someone just sold this, right? This is there. Don't expect because you see this as the call wall for the day. When you see them so far above or below the call or the put wall, these one day moves, these are just institutional players that thought this was a safe area, that this will never get to these prices, and they're selling it, right? Trying to make a couple pennies on millions of contracts, uh, and that's what they do. So don't think because this is the one day uh, or the call wall for the day or the put wall for the day when they're so far above or below the solid call wall, the long term call wall, or the put wall. Those are just places that were sold. So as we look at, really what I'm expecting, I would say that, 60, 450 to 65, maybe even up in 10. And then if you could cross over this call wall in the cash market, the VIX is going to need to go lower. Uh, so you can watch, the VIX and make sure it's staying below yesterday's low of the day as we're above yesterday's high of the day in the indexes. That'll be a good sign. And then you'll want to see it, not come back into yesterday's range for that to be sustained. It's not the end all be all. Sometimes there's a little wonkiness and other things going on that can affect it, but it's generally a good way to look at it. And then as we look at the Qs, uh, basically you got a large gamma right at 72, so I'm going to be watching that first up. That would be about 80 points lower than we're currently trading right now. And then as we look at where we could go from 575 to 580 or towards 580. And that's where you should be looking to cash out as a day trader. And then if you do, you have to breach 570 to get any chance lower. I would probably just be hands off, to be honest with you, at 570. Um, Looking at SPY, again, you got a lot going on at 650. So I would get out short of 650 as you go up there, sit on hands and see if the move can be sustained over that. So if you do cross over 6,500, that would be first. 650 would be your next test, and you can see that expected move of the day and the ETF is just a little bit above that at 650.60. I hope this helps. We'll see what Jack's looking at next. And for those of you who are trading tomorrow, I'll talk to you. You'll hear me then. And then everyone else have a great holiday, and we'll see